Hi everyone, it's Megan here from Meghan Makes Do, and today I want to show you how to make the beautiful Briggs Blanket Scarf. This is my latest knitting pattern and it is absolutely gorgeous. I am so in love with it and I know I'm going to use it a ton this winter. So the Briggs is very simple to make. It uses this gorgeous stitch that creates a nice little like bubble texture to it. And it also features a garter stitch border. So today I'm going to show you how to make a mini Briggs. You can always follow along with the free written pattern on my blog as well. I'll put a link in the description below. For today's tutorial, we are using the same yarn I used for the original. This is Lion Brand Collection 100% Baby Alpaca. It's a lightweight 3 yarn and it is amazing. It's so soft and it works up so nicely. I'm already dreaming up more projects to use with it. I'll also be using a 12-inch circular set of knitting needles. I'm using US 6 4mm knitting needles. These are the same size I use in the original. So we're going to make a mini version today, but if you are following along and you are making the original big size Briggs, just know that you'll have to cast on a few more stitches than I make. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to start our mini Briggs, we are going to be casting on a total of 32 stitches. If you are following along and making the full version, you will need to put 112 stitches on your needles. So that includes 10 stitches, which will be our garter stitch border. So go ahead and we can cast on 32 stitches for our mini version. So the main stitches of our pattern is going to be a multiple of 4 plus 2. So if you wanted to adjust the size of your Briggs, you would just need a multiple of 4 plus 2 and then add 10 stitches to that for your garter stitch edge. So go ahead and using your preferred cast on method, I like to use the long tail cast on, go ahead and cast on the stitches for your Briggs scarf. Okay, so I've got my 32 stitches cast on to my needles, and for the first 5 rows, we're going to be creating this bottom garter stitch edge. So we're just going to knit all stitches across for 5 rows. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'll come back here and we'll get into the actual bulk part of the pattern, which is deceptively simple to make. If you can knit and purl, you can definitely make a Briggs. Okay, so I just finished making 5 rows of garter stitch, so just knitting each stitch across for 5 rows. And now we're going to get into the bulk of our pattern repeat for the Briggs scarf. So it's an 8-row repeat, and in this first row that we do, we're going to be placing stitch markers on either side to mark where our garter stitch edge is going to be. So this first row is we're going to knit each stitch across, but we're going to place our markers 5 stitches in. So knit 5. Okay, so we've knit 5 and then we're going to place a marker on our needles, and then we are going to knit across until we have 5 stitches remaining. Okay, so when we have 5 stitches left, we're going to place our next marker on. So that way we have a marker indicating where we are going to stop and start our garter stitch edge. So it's nice because our edge for our blanket scarf is going to be done while we're working our regular scarf. Okay, so now we can turn. So that was the end of row 1 of our pattern repeat. So we're going to knit that first row, and luckily for our garter stitch edge, it's the same. But this next row we would purl across, but since we're doing a garter stitch edge, we want to knit these 5 stitches. So the 5 stitches at the beginning and the 5 stitches at the end will always be knit. So I'm going to knit these first 5 stitches. And then I'm going to slip my marker, and now I'm going to bring my yarn to the front, and we are going to purl every stitch until we get to the next marker. So purl across until you reach the next stitch marker. Okay, so I'm going to purl this last stitch, and now I have hit my stitch marker. So I'm going to slip a stitch marker, move my yarn to the back of my work, and then I'm going to knit the last 5 stitches. Make sure I get my tension right. So the first 5 and the last 5 stitches you will always be knitting, and that's going to give us that garter stitch edge. Okay, so now we're going to get to the third repeat for our pattern stitch, and this is where we're going to start forming those little like bubble stitches. So again, we're going to start by knitting 5. And then we are going to slip our marker, and then we are going to do 2 knit stitches. So knit 2, and then we're going to purl 2. And then again, we're going to knit 2, and then we're going to purl 2. And we're going to do this all the way across, ending with 2 knit stitches. So just remember that you're keeping track. Make sure that you knit 2 stitches and then purl 2 stitches. And we're going to do this all the way until we hit our marker. Okay, so let's knit our last 2 stitches before the marker. And again, slip our marker, whoop, there we go. And then again, knit the last 5 stitches. Okay, then we're gonna turn, and this time we're gonna do the opposite of what we did. So again, always starting with the first 5 stitches knit. And then you're gonna slip your marker. And we're going to move our yarn to the front. Whoop. And now we're gonna purl 2, knit 2. So we started the last row by knitting 2 and then purling 2, but now you can see here we have the purl. We're gonna purl 2, and then knit 2. And then purl. And we're going to repeat that all the way across until we hit our next marker, and we will end with 2 purl stitches. Okay, so here's our last 2 stitches. We're going to purl both of those. We've hit our marker. I'm going to move my yarn to the back since I'm getting ready to do the last 5 knit stitches. So I'm going to slip my marker and then knit the last 5. Okay. So we have our first 4 rows of our main pattern done. Okay, so now we are going to repeat our row of knit and then a row of purl. But again, this one we're just going to knit all the way across. And just keep in mind that you're always going to knit these first 5 and last 5 stitches. Slip your marker and then knit until the next marker. Okay, and then slip our marker and knit the last 5. Okay, and now this is our purl row, but again, we're always going to knit the first 5 and the last 5, slipping our marker each time. To the front and slip our marker, and now we're going to purl until we get to our next stitch marker. Okay, here's our last purl stitch. Move our yarn to the back, slip our marker, and now we're going to knit those last 5 stitches just as we did in all the previous rows. Okay, so now we can work the last 2 rows of our pattern repeat, and you can kind of start to see the pattern forming here, these little like bubbles of knit stitches. It'll become more apparent the farther you get into making this scarf. Okay, so again, start by knitting these first 5 stitches. Okay, and then we're going to slip our marker. Got a little thing there. Okay, so last time we did knit stitch first, and in the second row we did purl. So now we're going to do purl first and then knit. So an easy way to tell is you can see here all of these stitches, these 2 stitches here have been knit. So I know my next one is going to need to be a purl. So we're going to start with a purl 2, and then we are going to knit 2, purl 2, and repeat that across until we hit our next stitch marker. So knit 2, purl 2. And we'll end with 2 purl stitches. Okay, there's our last 2 purl stitches. Move our yarn to the back, slip our marker, and then of course knit the last 5. Okay, and then we're going to turn. And this is the last row of our stitch repeat. So again, start by knitting 5. slip our marker, and then this time we started that last row with a purl. So you can see here we need to do starting with knit. So we're going to knit 2, and then we're going to purl 2, and then knit 2, and repeat that. So purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, ending with 2 knit stitches before our next stitch marker. So here's our last knit 2, and then we can slip our stitch marker and again knit the last 5 stitches. Okay, so let's lay this out so you can see our pattern is starting to form. Our little mini Briggs is here, so you can see that we're making these little bubbles and the knit stitches, kind of almost like a basket weave. So we know that our next row we're going to have knit stitches here and here and purl stitches here. So we're just going to repeat those last 8 rows over and over and over until we kind of get the hang of it. And then I'll show you how to end your work. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat those 8 rows for a couple more inches so you can kind of see, kind of get a feel for what the Briggs will look like. But you'll start to see your pattern kind of coming through. You'll just always have these garter stitch edges on either side, just like that. So I will come back in a little bit and show you how to finish off the Briggs. So here you can see that I have repeated these 8 rows here 3 more times. So in a normal Briggs scarf, when you're making the full-size version, you're going to be doing this 8-row repeat 66 more times after the first one. So if you don't want to keep track of how many stitches or rows that you're doing, you can go ahead and just make it until you get to about 70 inches long. Again, once you block it, it's going to stretch out a little bit. So anyway, now we're ready to finish off, and we want to create this garter stitch border along the top, just as we did for the bottom. Okay, so this next row would normally be a knit row. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to knit each stitch across, but we're going to be removing our stitch markers as we go because we will no longer need them. So after these first 5 knit stitches, we can just go ahead and take our stitch marker off, and then knit all stitches across. And then remove the second stitch marker and knit until the end. Okay, and now we're just going to do 4 more rows of just knitting each stitch all the way across. Okay, I've just finished the 4th row of my garter stitch for the edge, and now we are just going to bind off all of our stitches. So I just use a typical knit stitch bind off. So knit 2 and then slip your right loop over the left, knit 1 more, slip the right loop over the left, and continue all the way across your row. Okay, our last stitch here. And then we can cut our yarn and fasten off. And our piece will be ready for weaving in ends and blocking. So here you can see our little mini sample of what the Briggs scarf pattern is. Again, the full written instructions are available on my blog. I'll put a link to that in the description below, as well as links to the full kit from Lion Brand Yarn and all the materials that I used here. So I hope that you will love your brand new Briggs Blanket Scarf. It is a beautiful scarf, perfect for winter. You can see here the full version will end up being about 18 inches wide and 72 inches long when you block it, and you can wear it a number of different ways. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you will make your own Briggs Blanket Scarf. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.